Hi, I'm Greg Euland with Reynolds & Reynolds, and this is Connected. Today, I'm talking with Chris Walsh, Executive Vice President of Sales and Marketing at Reynolds, and we're going to talk about the digitization of retailing and which areas have kind of embraced transformation and which ones still have a ways to go. Let's get connected. Chris, thanks for hopping on again.
No problem, Greg. Good to see you.
You too. It's been a while. I think the last time you were on the podcast was a little different setting. It was probably late March of 2020. I think I was in my basement and you were probably at your dining room table or something. So it's lots changed.
Sure has.
So wanted to talk today, Chris. You were recently a part of an executive roundtable as part of the PACE Awards that Automotive News puts on every year. Was hoping to talk with you about that. Can you start with just a little bit about what that project is about and what gets discussed?
Sure. Well, every year Automotive News holds their PACE Awards. So leaders from all across the industry are selected as finalists to participate in the program. And it's really designed to recognize and, well, I guess, evaluate and recognize automotive innovations across the entire automotive ecosystem. And, it really helps, I think, readers to stay at the forefront of innovation. So readers, us included, and it's really about changing the way people and things move in our industry and what the future holds, in both sales and service. And more importantly, what it all means to dealers and how we can take that, knowledge and turn it into, productive discussions and obviously products that help dealers be successful.
Yeah, for sure. And those awards, I mean, they highlight a lot of different things from hardware that goes into vehicles, which is pretty astonishing, to tools and software and things like that too. So, in our world, in the automotive retail world, we look at software and the progress we've made and the rapid adoption that the dealers have taken to a lot of new technology. With that rapid adoption, what do you think that says about, I guess, dealers in general and then the state of the industry?
Well, I mean, I think dealers in general, it's, how driven they are, to be successful, how innovative the industry is as a whole. You talked about some of the things that are available. You read about some of these companies and what they're doing. It really makes you wonder, what's it going to be like to drive a car in 10 years? The intelligence that's going to be available to you as a driver is really going to be, amazing, and how resilient our industry is. I mean, obviously, COVID impacted, every industry across, every country in the United States to varying degrees. And I think that the automotive industry did a really good job of, pivoting, which I think is a clear indicator that our industry is really healthy. And, dealerships operate very successful businesses that allow them to invest in new ways of doing business when it becomes necessary, or sometimes before it's necessary. So I do think our industry is getting a little bit better about being more proactive versus reactive. And I think that's a really good sign for the future of automotive.
Yeah, for sure. And when you think about some of those proactive areas, what are some of those? Maybe you could pop the hood on that a little bit and just talk about where are some areas that we've seen growth and improvement, at least recently and rapidly.
Well, I think investing in new ways of doing business means, expanding your traditional business operations, your dealership operations. And what does that really mean? In today's environment, that means that you take, the tools that and use today inside the four walls of the dealership and start using them outside the four walls of the dealership. So it's really about, expanding your reach and finding new ways, to drive profitability without really changing the nature of what, the dealership is. I mean, the big one right now, I think, has to be, remote options. The pandemic, proved that customers, they want convenience, and, dealers accepted, that mission, pretty quickly. I think, you look at things like QR codes and how those were adopted across so many different, types of businesses, but dealers, adopted it as well. Things like paying online and signing documents remotely. And certainly we help dealers, in that area adopt that kind of technology and building the deal online. All these offerings, they've always been there in store, and they'll continue to play a role when the consumer's in the dealership. But how do we make them available to consumers when they're outside the store wherever they are. And it all circles back to efficiency in the dealership. And that's what, keeps those customers coming back time and time again. And I've mentioned it a couple of times, I talk about inside the four walls and outside the four walls. And I do think we have to, as an industry, have to change how we think. And there's really no delineation between the two of those things for the consumer. They expect it to look the same and they expect it to feel the same no matter what they're doing. And it needs to be a seamless transition between the two. So they're very connected now.
Yeah, it's almost the same experience. I mean, it's got to be, to your point, the same no matter where they are, and you got to be able to pick it up from wherever they stopped and make it feel seamless to them too. So, and when you can do that effectively, I mean, ultimately that just leads to even greater profitability.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what about the flip side, Chris? What are maybe some areas that you've seen, or maybe in talking to dealers, I know you're out a lot, that are some areas that maybe are still ripe for improvement or diving into?
Well, I think, one of the things that I've heard, I've kind of noticed myself, I've talked to dealers and I've read about is just the logistics side of the automotive business, right? I think it's a big opportunity for everyone, so that what does that mean? So we're talking about delivering vehicles to consumers. So that's a little bit of the Carvana model, right? They were successful in doing that. How do you move vehicles between stores, or how do you move vehicles in the reconditioning process, or maybe amongst reconditioning facilities, or picking up and dropping off options for service. And I know on a personal level, I don't think my wife's ever going to go to a dealership to bring her car in for service again. Like, to her, the new norm is that they come and get my car either at our house or at work, and then they bring it back there. To her, that's the way, it's going to work. And that's the expectation, that she has. So, we continue to embrace the customers want to do business on their terms, wherever they are. And there are companies like Draver, I think, that really doing some great work in this space to meet those needs. And I think you'll see more of that pop up, because I think there's a really big opportunity for everyone there.
Yeah, it seems like you hear about that topic at any group of dealers that you're at. I remember just a few months ago at Digital Dealer, we had a session there, and I just kind of sat back and dealers started talking amongst themselves, and naturally the conversation led to transportation and logistics. It's a problem that people are really trying to figure out. So I think you're right there too. You do hear it a lot. So it's a big one that hopefully we can fix soon. Chris, earlier you referenced, remote experiences. Where do you think, just either from personal experience or what you've seen, where do you think consumers are with digital adoption? Are they happy with where we're at? Do you think they want more technology? Where do you think we are?
Well, I mean, I think for sure, car buyers today, and I would probably say, in generalizing things, people in general today are the most digital they've ever been. A lot of that's been driven by COVID, but I think COVID's more accelerated it, than anything else. But also, I think it's important to note that no one customer is the same. From the numbers that I've seen, a little over 20% of consumers want to purchase their vehicle entirely online, whereas others want just pieces of it. So, for example, I think around 30% are interested in signing online. A little over 40% want to work with the dealership remotely to come to an agreement on payment and price. So, what the customers want to do between the digital and the in-store experiences, it changes from customer to customer. And we're at a point where I think we have more, technology that continues to evolve available to help dealerships to meet the needs of these different types of consumers. Gubagoo for us is a perfect example, of that. And I don't believe they necessarily want more technology. They just want an easier, more transparent and faster process than what we've experienced, in the past. We talked about, blurring the lines between in-store and inside the four walls and outside the four walls. And, it's about their experience, and they don't care, where they are and how they're communicating, with them. So, we hear it all the time, but consumers, they really do, compare their experience with dealerships to other retailers they come across. I hear it all the time, socially, when I talk to people about what they're doing. That's really the way they look at things. They want online payments. They want status updates. They want self-serve kiosks. And even I talked about QR codes to carry over and be available at dealerships. So I think it's about, blurring those lines between, outside the four walls and inside, and, offering that kind of flexibility to consumers. So depending on the type of consumer they are, they can, interact and transact, with using whatever tools and methods of communication that are available to them.
Yeah, yeah, it's a good point. Just everybody is unique. So, but fast forward maybe 3, 5, 10 years. Do you think there's a time when a completely remote transaction, so never test driving the car or anything, a completely remote transaction is the norm or the expectation? I mean, do you see that in the future where somebody's not actually coming into a store, the average person?
Yeah, that's kind of a funny question to me, just because, I look, kind of introspectively at myself, and I'm 50-ish, Greg, if I can say it that way. So I don't see myself ever doing that. I really don't. I see myself doing pieces of it, but I don't ever see myself, doing that. But dealers are competing with companies like Carvana, who I talked about earlier, who do offer this, complete online buying experience. But I think right now that's a very small audience, a very small part of the market. It's still not widely accepted. So to say that there's going to be a day when everyone's going to buy, vehicles, 100% online, I don't know that I'm ready to take that leap yet. I know that we conducted a study, and I know that you and Casey and I talked about it recently, and the results were kind of what we expected, right? Consumers, they find value in dealerships, so they know that, a dealership's a valuable resource for them. But it's our responsibility as an industry to understand where they see the most value during the buying process and capitalize on that. So again, it's about that experience. I mean, consumers still want to test drive a vehicle. They need help understanding the options for, protecting that vehicle, and they want to feel confident that they obtain the best financing option, possible for them. And it's still a people business. I mean, you want to buy a car from someone that you trust, and it is the second largest capital purchase that we generally, make behind a house. I mean, the average price of a vehicle, I think, is nearly $40,000, or at least I know it's in the 30s, mid 30s. So it's, it's a lot of money. So, and I think that's why they see that value. And yeah, some of these things can be done remotely, but I think going forward, most are going to happen with some blend of remote and in-store activity.
Hey, before we wrap, anything else you want to talk about today? Anything we haven't touched on that we should, or anything?
I mean, I just think, I've been in this business for, almost 35 years, and, there's been lots of changes that have happened in the industry, but I really think this is the most exciting time I can remember, being in automotive, for a couple of reasons. One, I think that, our company is evolving and focusing more on our customers, which I am really, really excited about, because I think it makes, us a stronger company. Our drive to build the best products, or to partner, with companies for the best products, I think is stronger than it's ever been. And the Retail Anywhere story, that you guys started and you guys created that, that initiative, is really resonating, with customers. And we're a little bit ahead of the curve, I feel like, in coming out with this. And I think that Gubagoo plays a really important part in that initiative. And I think those three things are what makes me, excited for where automotive is going, but really excited for, the part that we can play, in helping the industry evolve and helping our dealers be successful. So I'm super excited about where we're going.
Yeah, me too. It's going to be a continued fun ride, that's for sure. All right, Chris. Well, hey, definitely appreciate you taking time to talk through this and just have a quick conversation today. Take care, and I'm sure we'll talk soon. All right.
All right. Take care of yourself, Greg, and stay healthy.
All right. Thanks.
Take care.
Before we hop off, don't forget you can watch or listen to episodes of Connected on YouTube, Apple, or Spotify podcasts. And don't forget to subscribe so you're notified every other Wednesday when new episodes are released. Thanks so much for joining us today, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.